Hello, everyone. My name is Marcus Bernard. I'm an associate professor here at Kentucky State University in the College of Agriculture, where I teach agricultural economics and rural sociology. I'd like to thank you all for joining my session today, where if you'll just lend me your ears, I'd like to talk a little bit about farming for tomorrow in line with the theme of the conference, because I know for everyone, the pandemic, the disruption in food systems, the changes in the economy have affected everyone. So just for a few minutes, I'd like for us to talk about and think about farming for tomorrow. So in the presentation, I'll just elaborate a little bit on some of the visions that we have of farming, give you some background on current statistics in farming and how it may be related to you, talk a little bit about some of the challenges in farming, and round it out on sustainability in farming. And then, just in case you're wondering, I'm all about the next generation. So I found this picture of a little lady that is working with her parents and grandparents during the onion harvest in Petal, Mississippi, for one of the organizations I used to work with. So oftentimes when we think about farming, we think about these long rows of corn and soybeans and growing just this bountiful harvest and feeding the world. But I can assure you that is certainly a vision. When we think about, again, the pandemic and how things have been disrupted, the picture of farming is very, very different. And so when we get past the long green rows of corn and soybeans, sometimes we think about just the smell of turning the dirt over, just that fresh smell of breaking the new earth, and just such a joy, tranquil experience with farming. But even then, there are other visions of farming that others may have. You go into some of the urban areas or some of even the younger generations of the African American community, and there's visions of farming where, I don't want to farm. My ancestors picked cotton and I don't want to do that. And that's the vision that I have of farming. And even that is beginning to change due to the pandemic. Because we starting to see more emphasis on local food systems and urban farming. So all of these visions and pictures of farming are starting to change. Even the picture or vision of the older gentleman farmer on his older equipment, just enjoying the land, even that is changing. Because as the farmers are getting older, there has to be some kind of succession plan for the land. And now families are getting more involved in their farming operations and seeing how they can, if not work the land, find some kind of way to keep the land in the family. And as you know, we are a nation of farmers. And in the 2017 Census of Agriculture, you can see just what that picture looks like. Each dot across the country represents about 200 farms. And you can see here in the great bluegrass state, we're pretty dense with farms. So, just to give you a visual. And then we look a little closer, particularly with African American farmers. We see that 88% of African American farmers actually live in the South. 12 states, from Texas to Tennessee. And that's in the first column. In the second column, I just added some of the actual acreage that the farmers hold within these states. And I included at the very end in green, Kentucky, where we don't have as many African American or Black producers, but it is significant. The land holdings are significant, and not just African American producers, but all small producers. We have to give them their due attention. And, we oftentimes think, well, it's the small producers and the large producers, but whenever we look really closely at the data, we see that farms in the country are generally, in fact, overwhelmingly, between 10 and 179 acres. You see that in the toward the bottom of the bar graph. And if you look over to the right, you'll see that the African American or Black operated farms fall in that same category of 10 to 179 acres. But we have some differences in outcomes, and we have to really look closely at the data and see how we improve outcomes for all farmers, because we want all farmers to do well, be profitable, and continue in the occupations that they love. And so, continuing with the data, you look by economic class here, and this is a really telling picture where if you look from the bottom bar on the left-hand side, majority of farmers being white, from the less than 1,000 bar at the very bottom up to that $10,000 to $24,999. About 67% of white farmers are making less than $25,000 a year. And over on the right, about 87% of Black farmers are making less than $25,000 a year. Now, this is pre-pandemic, pre-coronavirus, pre-disruption in the food system. So that tells me we have some work to do. We have to rethink, retool, and change our approach to help farmers make a little bit more money. So staying with the data here for just a couple more slides, you can see that just the raw numbers, that from 2012 to 2017, we actually had an increase in the number of all farmers as well as African American or Black producers. And much of that increase can be attributed to programs like the Beginning Farmers Program with NIFA, as well as other farm programs that supported landowners. And it doesn't mean all the farms are actually actively producing, but many of the farms are now registered and perhaps even in some type of land management program. So just to, again, give you a picture of agriculture and farming across the nation. So I can tell you that farming is not an easy occupation. There are many challenges, and particularly with African American producers, there's historical racism and discrimination that's been a barrier for these producers. A really emerging topic is heir property, and at one point it was used to save property and make sure the land stayed in the family. Now many families are losing their land because of heir property. Strained relationships, and in some cases non-existent relationships in the marketplace, are a challenge. Access to productive lands, as well as access to capital. All of these are barriers and challenges to African American farmers and in broader sense, many farmers. Also, when you think about marketing, many regulations have actually come into play that have not made it easy for a lot of farmers. It's been quite a challenge just because many don't have the means to adjust. Thankfully, there are some supports, but when you think about some of the food safety planning and some of the food safety regulations around GAP, HACCP, even in urban agriculture and zoning, these present challenges to many farmers, many small farmers. And then lastly, and probably most glaringly, the pandemic and market disruption around the pandemic for those farmers that were able to secure markets from big box and small box stores to local farmers markets to restaurants, even food service businesses. With the economy closing, the restrictions at many of these establishments, it has just amplified many of those challenges. But, with every challenge, I was always taught that there's an opportunity. And so to be sustainable and to think about how to make it through these times, I thought of three particular approaches to sustainability, and they're not mine. They're not my approaches. They're just things that farmers and those working in rural communities have successfully carried out, and they work. So the first approach is changing your paradigm. You got to have some out-of-the-box thinking and in many cases programming. The gentleman in the picture on the right is a farmer in Alabama. Purchased about 100-acre farm with the intention of setting up a livestock operation, only to find out that the land was not suitable for a pasture, and just the costs were just not going to be manageable. So what did he do? He turned his idea for a livestock farm into an herb farm. And so he's standing in between two rows of moringa trees. So he actually grows a variety of herbs. Was able to get financing for a processing facility, and where he processes the herbs and is able to market them locally. So you got to think out of the box. And along with that, you got to keep it simple and be honest. People know when you're selling them a story. A fake bill of goods, if you will. So you just want to keep it simple, be honest with your customer base, and most importantly, be honest with yourself. Number two, you want to respect the community that you're working in and that you're a part of. So oftentimes you got to meet people where they are. And I think with things like the CSAs, community supported agriculture, even cooperative purchasing and buying, look at what's in your community. Every community has assets, and you have to respect that community. And again, meet people where they are. And another aspect of that is you have to engage through social media. I always say, when talking with farmers, can I come to your farm? And they love for me, come to your farm. But unfortunately, with the pandemic, traveling onto farms and visiting is not as accessible. but you can create through social media and other means ways for people to see what's happening on your farm. So engage your customer base and the public through social media. You'll be surprised at the feedback. Oftentimes people want to support, but they quickly say they just don't know. And so take advantage of social media. Third approach, grow your strategy and have a hard copy. You know, we all have in our mind what our business plan, what our marketing plan, our production plans are, but you gotta write it down, have a hard copy, or type it, have a file on a computer somewhere. And so, you know, with the business plan, there's so many avenues you can go about in developing your business plan, but make sure you have a solid business plan. And with that business plan, I just made a little note there. Think about a land management or resource management plan, because that'll oftentimes help when developing and thinking about your marketing plan as well as your production plan. And I intentionally put production plan last because it's more important now than probably ever that you have secured some type of market or outlet for whatever goods you're producing. You know, I currently work with farmers at some demonstration sites here in Kentucky, and one of the greatest challenges is, you know, with vegetables and produce, you don't have one section that gets ready, ripe and ready for harvest in another section, unless you have a staggered planting system in place. But even then, you have to have an outlet and a plan whenever it's time to harvest. And so if you don't, then you stand to, of course, lose quite a bit of money. So you want to have that business plan and marketing plan in place first. And then, of course, carry out that production plan. Remember, you know, whether you call yourself farmer, grower, or producer, you are an agribusiness owner. And as a business, sometimes you're going to wear many hats. You're going to take care of the marketing, the promotion and advertising. You got to keep all the books, all the paperwork, every financial piece, your balance sheet, you have to do all of that. Your supply chain, getting your inputs, your maintenance of equipment, all of this is under one hat. You, the farmer, the grower, the producer, the owner. And of course, if you are in a position to have additional employees, and you got to manage that also. So, you know, it can be quite an undertaking when you're thinking about farming. And of course, as I said, you know, thinking about farming for tomorrow, planning is the key to be sustainable and successful, because ultimately you want to make a profit. But I wanted to spend some time here because oftentimes when we think about having a profitable farm, a profitable operation, we're thinking about the economic value, where, you know, our net income from, you know, our total revenue minus our total expenses or total cost. But, you know, we also have to think about the cultural value that we bring into the communities having a farm, the community and social capital that we bring into our communities. Of course, the educational value, intellectual value, and the customs and traditions, all of these things add to your value as a farmer and your operation in your community, your respective communities. So when you're thinking about your operation, don't forget that value. Of course, the economic value is extremely important, but there's more than just the money. So just a few questions here to close it out here. Make sure that you always and constantly are asking and answering for yourself, what type of agribusiness are you? Are you organic? Are you traditional? Are you farming for a specific market? Are you rotating your crops or livestock? Where are you conducting your farming operation, and what is the objective of your agribusiness or farm? Are you looking to move into value added or high value commodities? Always, you're constantly thinking and asking these questions. How much capital do you have available for startup? Extremely important. And then, of course, how much capital do you need to sustain your business? Depending on the type of operation you have, you may only see maybe 3 or 4 paydays a year. So you want to take into consideration the type of operation you have and the amount of capital that's needed to sustain your operation. And then in some cases, you may need additional capital. So how easy is it to secure additional capital? Have you made arrangements so that if you need the capital, you're not in a corner, you can easily access it? And then, of course, you got to think about those tax liabilities and just, what are those options that you have when that time of the year comes around with regard to taxes. You also, you think about your time. Oftentimes, as a business owner, you maybe pay yourself last. But with the amount of time that you put into your farm, your operation, think about how valuable that time is and what you pay yourself. And then how much time do you have to actually commit to grow the farm to what you want it to be? What kind of time commitment is there? And then, of course, to get to a point of stability, thinking about even transfer of ownership or succession plan. These are all important factors with your farming operation. How desirable is it to keep your affairs private? Most farmers I know are extremely private. And so I just always stress, what practices or procedures do you have in place to ensure your privacy? Last 2 questions, of course, you're always thinking about risk and liability. And then lastly, and extremely important, think about the type of organizational structure that you operate under. Are you operating as a sole proprietor? Are you operating in partnership with another owner? Or is it a corporation, S corporation, LLC, limited liability company? Are you part of a cooperative? All of these things matter. So you want to think about and get really sound legal advice on the type of operation that works best for you. So that's all I have. I just wanted to give you some things to think about with your farming operations and how you move forward, especially during these uncertain times, the pandemic that we're in. People got to eat. So you're definitely in need. We need you. And we want to support you all that we can. So I've provided my email address. You can contact me if you have any questions, comments, or any needs around your farming operation, and I'll be there to support the best way I can. Thank you very much for your time. Enjoy the conference. Take care.